What's up, True Crime World? You're here with Illuminal on the Wall. I'm Bevy.
And I'm Becky. And today's case is about a woman who escapes a violent marriage. Unfortunately, her 2 children force her to remain intertwined with her ex. And years later, his deep rage will force her to fight for her life. This is the case of Teri Jendusa-Nicolai. Listener's discretion is advised.
Well, hello to all of our LOTW friends and family.
Yes, hello, everyone.
And hey, sister.
Hey, Bevy. How's it going?
It's going well.
It's going splendid.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Excited for the weekend.
Hell yeah. And today, although we're not releasing on today, we're recording it is Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Did you actually think anything about that today, Beth?
I did hear it. Yeah, one of my coworkers mentioned it, and I was like, oh, whatever.
Are you superstitious?
No, I'm not superstitious.
Me either.
Yeah, so it's just another day.
Like, oh, the 13th? Okay.
But we know, like, coming up into the season of Hollow Thanksgiving or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's a significant date.
And people are superstitious, and hopefully nothing happens to anyone bad.
Yeah.
Only good.
Cross our fingers. We're wishing you all the best on this 13th day of the week of Friday, whatever.
Of September.
Yeah, exactly. We're wishing you all well.
Jeez, Beth.
Listen, it is Friday.
Yes.
My brain is mush.
Mushy. So we actually have a really, not like super hectic weekend ahead of us, but tonight we are recording, and then we're going to go play some pickleball with some girlfriends.
True.
Gonna try our best.
Yes.
And any of our devout listeners know that last time we played pickleball.
We saw birds doing it.
Yep, we saw it. It was a very magical moment. So imagine what we could see tonight.
You never know, and we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Bev, we actually have, for the first time, one question from a fan.
All right, let's hear it.
So we have to answer it super honestly because we're sisters and you just have to. The question is, how do you work alongside your sister?
Ooh.
You care to answer? And I'll respond.
Oh, this is a juicy one because I don't know if you guys have picked this up or heard us say it before. Becky and I are complete opposites.
Yeah.
In like everything, in our, like what, I don't know, just like in everything, but specifically in the way that we like
work
and go about things.
Yes.
I'm a perfectionist. Becky is not. She's like a completionist. Get it done.
Consistent, hardworking.
Yeah, and I'm like detail orientated.
All the details.
All the details, and very like much so a perfectionist when it comes to what we do. So we have had plenty of fights. Initially, we did not work well together, like at all.
No,
I will say that.
Yeah, after like the initial hype of starting a podcast and be like, oh my God, this is going to be so fun. Then it was like, Bevy, why aren't you at my house at 5 p.m. like you said you were going to be?
Yeah, it's because
I was consistent.
Doing something.
Working, mostly. Traffic. But no.
I'm also a late person. But then Becky with her, like how she would speak into the mic, I was very critical of her initially.
Mm-hmm.
And I would stop her every like 10 seconds.
Drink some fucking water, Becky.
Yeah.
It's
like,
okay.
Stop breathing so heavy, Becky. I criticized the way she like wrote the podcast, like criticized the sound quality of our podcast. I was just very critical because I was like, I could just notice every imperfection. And yeah, Becky also takes criticism very personally. Like it's just hard for you sometimes. And so you can see how that would create a dynamic of frustration and tension. And yeah, so did we work well together? I think we've gotten to a place of where we have grown so much as people. I've learned to be more flexible. And like, even though we still like working on the details, I've learned to maybe approach it in a softer manner, you know, where it's not so like critical. And you have accepted that criticism.
Yeah, I have learned to take criticism quite a bit better. I mean, it's always hard. Sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow and you want to punch people in the face. Sometimes, but I think I have learned to be like, you're right. I do need some water.
Yeah.
Not to be like, oh my God, Bevy's so mean.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a very good question. So thanks for asking. And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to email us, message us on our socials, and
message on. I'm sorry.
Bev's cringing inside. But no, seriously, if you have any other questions about our dynamic, about our personal lives, let us know and we will answer as honest as possible, like we just did. But on that note, Bev, we are here to do a true crime podcast, so let's get into the story.
All right.
So Teri grew up in Wisconsin in a loving home. She had a strong family foundation from her childhood, and she met Dave Larsen as a young adult. He was an air traffic controller who seemed to have it all: a steady job, a house, and a charming personality. After a year of dating, Teri and Dave married in April of 1996, and they embarked on what was supposed to be a lifelong journey together. However, their honeymoon in Hawaii quickly turned dark when a heated argument about dinner attire escalated into Dave hitting Teri for the first time. Although Teri was mortified and instinctively knew she should leave, she felt trapped by embarrassment and the fresh ties of marriage. This was only the beginning of a turbulent relationship. Dave's temper became increasingly controlling. He imposed unrealistic standards on Teri, including making her keep the bathroom door open while she showered or used the toilet. Minor accidents like broken dishes were met with rage, leading Teri to hide evidence to avoid his wrath.
Welcome to Spattered Podcast, where some stains never wash away. From the shadows of unsolved mysteries to the dark secrets that left more than just a trace, step into the world of crime and mystery, where each drop, each spatter holds a clue. Follow us as we connect the dots, piecing together tales of betrayal and violence in a pursuit for justice. This isn't just another podcast. It's an unflinching deep dive into the evidence that others often fear to examine. Are you ready to see what lies beneath the viscous surface? Join me, Katie, your host, along with revolving co-hosts for Spattered, a true crime podcast, because the truth is always in the blood.
In 1997, Teri and Dave welcomed their first daughter, Amanda, followed by a second daughter named Holly. Despite the joy of motherhood, their marriage deteriorated, marred by frequent police visits due to domestic disturbances. The breaking point came during an argument over spaghetti, believe it or not. Dave's anger led to him pushing Teri while she had their 2-month-old infant in her arms, forcing her to seek refuge in the basement. And she did this because Dave had locked all the exits from the inside out to maintain control. Realizing the danger her daughters might face, Teri left Dave in 1999 and sought refuge at a shelter with her children. The divorce was finalized in 2001, but Dave's threats and ongoing custody battles continued to haunt Teri. She fought tirelessly to prove Dave's volatility, though evidence was hard to substantiate. By 2003, Teri had found happiness again with a man named Nicolai. However, the shadow of Dave loomed large. Dave's verbal and physical abuse continued during custody exchanges with the girls, leaving Teri with no other option but to get a restraint. Because of this, Dave was supposed to hand in all his firearms, which he did not comply with, and unfortunately was not followed up with either. The restraining order meant that Teri had to arrange for a friend or family member to accompany her with dropping off her children to Dave, which, to be quite honest, was really exhausting for her and difficult to coordinate.
I bet.
Now, eventually, Dave asked Teri to resume the drop-offs and pickups at his place. Teri hesitantly agreed, and Dave was still a dick to Teri, but it was manageable. On January 30th, 2004, Teri and Nick discovered they were expecting a new addition to their family. They were ecstatic to tell the girls the following day when Teri picked them up from Dave's. Now, the following day, on January 31st, Teri called Dave bright and early to make sure the girls would be ready on time, as they had a big day ahead of them. This day just so happened to mark the 3rd anniversary of Teri and Dave's divorce.
And not only that, but she's now with child.
With child?
Do you think Dave knows about it?
No, not at that point. He has no idea.
Interesting.
Yeah. So around 10 a.m. on the 31st, Teri went to pick up her daughters from Dave's house, deciding not to bring Nick along due to a previous confrontation between the two men. So when Teri arrived, Dave greeted her very calmly, which was completely unusual.
Ah, the calm before the storm.
He told her that the girls were playing hide and seek inside and invited Teri to come in and find them. Against her better judgment, Teri entered the house and turned her back to him to look for her daughters. Without warning, she was struck on the back of her head with a baseball bat and she fell to the floor, completely unconscious. When Teri awoke, Dave was standing over her and proceeded to beat her until she was near death, showing no mercy. After the beating, he attempted to suffocate her with a towel. When he thought that she was dead or closer to death, he duct taped her feet. Teri's sweatpants made it really hard to tape her feet together, and it kept pulling the pants down, so Dave just got frustrated, pulled the pants off of her, left her in her underwear, and then proceeded to tape her feet and hands. He also taped her entire head. And Bev, when I say entire head, I mean like from crown right to like almost the collarbone.
Wow. So he's clearly making an intent to kill her.
Yeah,
Obviously.
100%.
That's crazy.
And after he duct taped her, he shoved her into a garbage can. He then took that garbage can outside and proceeded to fill it with a bunch of snow so that it would freeze her body. And then he placed it in the back of his truck. While Teri was just in this garbage can in the bed of his truck, dying, Dave packed up the girls in his truck and started to drive to a storage unit in a neighboring state of Illinois. He dropped Teri off in a storage unit and locked her in there. He then brought his daughters to his girlfriend's house. So while this is all happening, Nick is obviously growing worried. As hours pass without any word from Teri, concerned, he called 911. And the police actually react rather quickly. They arrive at Dave's home to find it messy, unkept. They notice a pool of blood next to the garbage can with black women's pants and duct tape on them. Neighbors had reported seeing Teri around 10 a.m. and Dave towing her car away a little while later.
That's terrible.
Yes.
And obviously they're reacting quickly because they have a history of domestic violence. She has a restraining order against him, or has at some point, right?
Yes.
So it makes sense that they are quick to react.
Exactly. And on top of that, they also release an Amber Alert for Teri and her daughters because they don't know if they're in danger.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, he still has them. They're supposed to be with their mother.
Yeah. And they also put an APB out for Teri's car. They really want to find out what's going on. Now, only a little while later, a report comes in. They have found Teri's car. It was parked near a rental property that Dave owns.
Sketchy.
It's very sketchy. Why would it be there? Later that evening, they receive a call saying that David showed up for his night shift at work. The police go there, bring him into the police station, and start questioning him.
Crimes of passion are never really well thought out, hey?
No, they aren't. They probably think like, oh, I'm so smart.
Trying to like get everything, towed the car, did all of this, but really,
never find it.
like you're leaving trails of evidence. You did this in broad daylight where people saw you.
Like, did you think you were being sneaky?
Did you think her husband wouldn't be cautious, especially you've had a confrontation with him before? You don't think that he would notice his wife just didn't come home? It just seems that with these crimes of passion where like rage and just, opportunistic decisions are made, logic out the window.
Out the window. That is how it seems to go, right, Bev? Well, while at the police station, Dave tells the police that his kids are safe and his girlfriend is babysitting them while he's at work because Teri never showed up to get her girls. He goes on a rant saying that this is so typical of her and what he always has to deal with regarding Teri's shenanigans. Now, the police let him vent until they finally reveal that, hey, we've been to your house, we've seen the blood and the pants, and your neighbors saw Teri there and saw you towing her car. Additionally, while he's sitting at the station, the officers can clearly see blood splatter on his pants. Like, hello, Dave.
Stupid. Change your pants.
At the very least.
At the very least.
Come on, man. Like, you just beat the crap out of this woman. Obviously, you're going to have blood on your pants.
Logic.
Ugh.
Gone.
Yep.
Idiocy.
Once again.
At its highest. Although I will say, it's great. For criminals that do, this kind of shit, it's great. When they're stupid, we're like, yes.
Yes, so much evidence. We're figuring out what happened.
That's right.
That's true. So when Dave is confronted with all this, his story changes. Can you believe that, Bev?
I can.
Yes, he claimed Teri had arrived around 11 a.m., wielding a hammer and threatening him, which led him to strike her in self-defense. But his story completely fell apart when police revealed that actually Teri had called 911 while she was in the garbage can.
No way.
Yes, providing Dave's address to the police. And they had initially showed up at his house at 11 a.m. So his story was far from accurate.
Yeah, because he said that she showed up at 11 a.m., but the police were already there. So she obviously showed up much earlier.
Yeah, we know it was 10 a.m. So
Yeah, so
now here's what actually happened in those moments. While Dave was packing up his daughters and putting them in the truck, Teri was able to move the tape around her mouth just enough to breathe and barely talk. Then she managed to find her cell phone that was in her jacket pocket without seeing dial 911, and when the dispatcher answered, all Teri could think to do was recite Dave's address over and over again, hoping they would show up and find her. She knew she would be muffled, so she just wanted to get the address to them, right?
yeah, try her best to do that.
Yeah, so she didn't bother telling them any other information, what was wrong, that she was in the back of a truck. She just did not want to waste time having them not understand. Unfortunately, though, by the time the police showed up, which wasn't long at all, Dave had already driven off with Teri in the back. Now, while driving, Teri had heard the sirens approaching and got really excited until she realized she only gave them Dave's address.
Right, so that's where they're going.
Exactly.
Like they have no idea she's off to some other
land.
Yeah. Far away.
And they have no other context for the call.
Right.
And they have no idea she's in the back of his truck. Now, despite being unable to speak and drifting in and out of consciousness, Teri decides to call her husband, Nick. He can barely hear her. Teri has no idea where Dave is taking her, and so Nick tells her to call 911. Maybe they can track her phone. Now, this is where it gets really sad, because unfortunately, the 911 dispatcher that answered her second 911 call misinterpreted her distress call as a...
What?
Yeah. Because she's breathing heavy.
Right.
She's not really talking clearly.
Clearly not an intuitive, operator.
Dispatcher,
hey?
No. So the operator asks Teri if she can stand up. Teri tells the dispatcher she can't because her hands and feet are tied. And I kid you not, Bev, the operator responds with, well, if your hands are tied, how are you holding the phone to your face? At this point, Teri is drifting into unconsciousness.
Right.
And she just starts to breathe heavy.
That's all she can do. She can't speak.
Exactly. And the operator then says, ma'am, do you want to talk to me or sit and breathe deep like that? And then she just hangs up.
Wow.
So you can imagine when she comes to how desperate she's feeling. She's like, great, no one is believing me.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where I'm going, so I can't tell anyone either, right?
That's wild to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, wouldn't you be trained if, someone can't heavy breathing? Wouldn't you be trained to, I don't know, continue to ask the questions at least? Or
keep them on the line?
I don't know. That just seems very,
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems
unprofessional.
Really unprofessional, irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's good when you know you're handling potential life or death situations.
Exactly. And keep in mind, now this doesn't excuse this dispatcher's actions, is that Teri is being driven out of state. So the dispatch department is not the same one as before, where they were semi-aware of something going on.
Right.
And
so they don't have the history of her previous 911 call to even match it with. So all this dispatcher is hearing is heavy breathing. And I mean, if someone says their hands and feet are tied, you might wonder how they are speaking. But maybe their hands are tied in front of their body, and they can lift it up. Just saying.
Yeah, there's many possibilities. And this is why it's so terrible if you call 911 and you don't have an emergency, because a lot of times they will send someone or they'll try and find you if they have no context.
Yeah, don't be the person who cries wolf.
Yeah.
Right? Because we all know what happens in that story.
Exactly. Now, when Teri came to, she was still in the bed of Dave's truck. And like I said, she's feeling pretty darn hopeless. And with the previous 911 calls, Teri starts thinking of a new plan. So she tries to scratch the duct tape off her wrist with her thumb. And after a little bit of effort, she actually is able to rip the duct tape off. And now her hands were free. So she musters the strength to knock the lid off the garbage can and pulls the tarp back and starts waving her hands as Dave is driving. And this is all in hopes that a fellow traveler will see her and call 911. Quickly, though, she feels the truck come to a stop, and then all of a sudden starts getting beat with the bat again. Even closer to death, Teri hears Dave say, "One more stunt like that, and I will get my 38.
So he saw her waving her hands.
Yeah, and he pulled over and was like, nope.
Which is wild because the girls must still be in the truck.
They are.
Wow, that's messed up, man.
Yep. Now, Teri knows by a miracle of God she is still alive after that beating, and she knows she needs to play dead if she wants a chance at survival. For the rest of the trip, Teri tries to keep her mind going while she was conscious by thinking about her daughters and even how Dave was going to kill her. She just needed her mind to be active. And on top of keeping it active, she was very aware that her body was growing colder by the minute, and she could feel everything stiffening up.
Wow. Like she's going through extreme hypothermia. It's a cold, cold day, right?
Yep.
She doesn't have pants on either.
No, she doesn't. So her skin, I mean, she's in a garbage can, but her skin is exposed. She has no layers to like keep
Protect
that coldness off of her.
Wow. That would be really scary to experience.
Yeah. Now, around 4 a.m., the police decide to go through Dave's belongings to see if they could find any leads because he is absolutely no help.
Right.
Luckily, in Dave's wallet, they find a business card for an out-of-state storage unit in Illinois. The police contact the facility. They ask if there was a unit rented in the name of Dave Larsen and if he had been there that day. It was a yes to both those questions.
Wow.
They then ask the employee to go to the unit, see if they can see or hear anything. When the employee comes back on the phone, they tell them that there was a faint moan coming from the unit. They know that that must be Teri, and they packed up and headed straight to Illinois. They also contacted the local police so that they could get there faster because they know this is life or death.
100%. That is absolutely crazy that they just found a card in his wallet, hey?
Yeah, and we're smart enough to just
take action immediately.
Yeah, try calling them, right?
Wow.
Because it could seem like absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I guess there are enough crimes that occur in storage units, though.
Seems suspicious,
yeah,
regardless.
Like,
you got a storage
woman's
unit?
Missing? You got a weird business card? You know?
Go check it out. Now, when the police get to the storage unit, they broke the lock off and opened it. There was a garbage can with a bunch of boxes and just debris piled on top. Obviously, they don't see Teri immediately, so where else could she be but the garbage can? So they open it up and they discover Teri, freezing and near death, having spent a total of 26 hours trapped in that garbage can.
Holy crap, that's a long time.
It is a long time.
Like, she hasn't had water, she hasn't had anything to eat, she's freezing. Like, I just can't believe she's still alive.
I know. So as we can imagine, Teri was rushed to the hospital where she would spend 7 weeks with a total of 10 surgeries, one of which was removing all of her toes that had been damaged with frostbite. She also lost her and Nick's baby.
Devastated.
When Teri was finally released, she was wheelchair bound and had a long physical and mental recovery ahead. Regardless, she was happy to be alive. Surgeons later said that her survival was due to her will to live and the fact that she played dead during the attack.
Yeah, play possum, right?
Exactly.
It's a real thing.
Yep.
Because if he thinks she's dead, he's going to stop. But if there was any ounce of life left in her, I'm sure he would have beaten that out of her too.
For sure. After finding Teri, detectives head back to the station and go speak with Dave. They tell him they found Teri in his storage unit and she was still alive. Dave put his head in his hands and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And with pure disgust, detectives leave the room. On August 16th, 2005, Dave was sentenced to 35 years in prison for attempted first-degree homicide. 3 years later, in August of 2008, he received a life sentence in federal court for kidnapping and interstate domestic violence. In 2010, he attempted to escape prison, but his plans were thwarted. And Bev, do you want to know how they're thwarted?
Obviously, yes.
Okay, so Dave, being, such a brilliant man,
logical,
rational, he makes a whole plan in prison about how he's going to escape. And he was going to do that by creating a medical emergency.
Ugh.
And so the prison guards found it.
Found the notes.
Found what he was planning.
That's
and
funny.
They're like, okay, well, let's just wait to see when it happens.
Yeah.
And so when it did, they're like, joke's on you. We know you're trying to escape. And again, joke's on him because he was then sent to a maximum security facility.
Nice.
Where he was going to spend the rest of his life.
Amazing. Definitely think he deserves that.
I think so too. Like, you can tell he planned this all out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, it's what I find sad about the whole thing is that when you're in a domestic violence situation, I don't think it ever changes. And I often find, just from reading stories and testimonies, is that after the woman leaves, sometimes the abuser can pull you back in and you feel like, okay, maybe they've changed, whatever. And you, I don't know, you just like have faith in that moment. And that can be a matter of life or death.
Yeah.
And I feel like for her, it was that situation where it's like, you can just come inside, you know, and she, against her better judgment, was like, okay, or you don't have to have somebody drop the kids off. You can just do it. It's like,
yeah, like, let's just make it easier.
Yeah,
Clearly,
let's do it.
It's too much for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like he takes that moment where she had a little bit of faith that the situation could improve to just attack once again. Like, I just feel like that's how it happens at times.
Oh, it for sure is. What I want to kind of point out is that as we're talking about this, I even myself found myself forgetting that they had been apart for 3 years.
Yeah.
When this happened. So, you know, they say when you're trying to leave and like right after is like the most dangerous time.
Yeah.
But it was 3 years later. I can imagine if I was Teri, I would not assume that would happen at that point, having so much space in between their divorce and a new
they
marriage.
had so many like moments where they transferred kids back and forth without any, you know, violent mishappenings, like where her life was in danger or what have you.
That's true. But he was still actually violent to her in those children exchanges at times.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I don't know, in this situation, and I just want to say to women who are abused or to men who are abused, if you're trying to leave, and even if you've left, like, keep that barrier, man.
Keep your guard up.
Keep it no matter what. Always, I don't know, I would say think the worst, protect yourself.
Exactly. That is true. So despite Teri's traumatic experience, she uses her suffering to become an advocate for domestic violence victims. She helped draft the Wisconsin Safe Act, which is that they now have to physically remove firearms from the abusers who get served with restraining orders, and they do not need a warrant to do so.
Amazing.
So it's just like automatic, like, oh, restraining order, you have weapons, we're
Gone.
taking them.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
Yeah. She is also the chairman for Marcy's Law, which is a victims' rights initiative. She also speaks out about recognizing abuse and the available resources that are there for the victims. Teri and Nick, although they lost that baby during this horrific event, they ended up welcoming a new son. And Teri often reflects on her strength, quoting Nancy Reagan, "A woman is like a tea bag. Only in hot water do you realize how strong she is." And though Teri faced immense fear and pain, her courage and resilience have turned her story into one of hope and advocacy, making a significant impact on the fight against domestic violence.
Wonderful.
So, although this is a horrifying story, really good things ended up coming from it.
Absolutely. And one more abuser is in jail.
Forever.
Exactly. Maximum security, baby.
That's right. Where he should be.
Yeah. So there's a lot of happiness in this story. It's a story of survival. And I love it.
Well, Bev, this is the case of Teri Jendusa-Nicolai. And I'm so grateful that she survived and has been able to be such a wonderful role model to her daughters and son, as well as so many other victims of domestic violence.
Amen, Becky.
All right. That's all I have for you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing. And just your weekly reminder to download our weekly episodes, follow us on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, and give us a follow on our social medias. You can find us at Luminol on the Wall. Can't wait till next week.